No Ordinary Vampiress and the Tether. Chapter 1. New Orleans wears its legends like beads after Mardi Gras, loud, bright, impossible to ignore. Jazz softens the corners of the French Quarter, the St. Louis Cathedral keeps its marble vigil, and the National World War II Museum remembers what cannon fire took away. There is always music somewhere. There are always celebrations, births, marriages, new homes, the little things that stitch a life together. The old house on the hill belonged to the Sinclairs for generations. For Calliope Sinclair, every floorboard hides a memory, every creak carries a whisper of childhood. Her return wasn't planned. She never thought she would come back. But when Aunt Rosa called, investors were circling the property. Calliope flew home from Italy, where she'd buried herself in kitchens and created a name that glittered on restaurant awnings. Now she stands in the dusty kitchen, the air thick with sunlight and ghosts. Her mother at the stove, laughing. Her father in his favorite chair by the hearth, reading. Her little brother, a blur of elbows and inventions. Her hand finds her sternum, steadying the storm behind her ribs. She closes her eyes and inhales, pulling the past into her lungs. A sound at the door. She turns. Rosa. Cal, welcome back. I didn't think you'd come. Calliope's smile is tired but real. They hug. Aunt Rosa. You look well. Rosa's gaze drifts over cracked tile and sun-faded paint. They were happy here, she says, nostalgia heavy in her voice. Tea? Calliope asks. There should be some in the cupboard. She doesn't wait for an answer. The kettle fills, metal hissing under the tap. They sit at the small table. Rosa lists the offers made on the house. I wasn't sure what your plans were after. Rosa swallows the rest. Now that they're gone. The words hang in the air and stare back. Calliope sets a cup in front of her aunt and wraps her own hands around her mug, knuckles whitening. I miss them so much, she whispers, as if admitting it will crack the world. Rosa covers her hand, one small squeeze, a little anchor, and they fall into a quiet that says more than words. The accident that took Calliope's parents was headline fodder for months. Freak, unusual, unspeakable. She stopped reading, stopped listening. She cooked instead. Built a restaurant in Italy. Built a fortress, really. 5 years later, the pain still moves like weather in her, sudden and wild. It rises now, tears slide hot and honest down her face, and for the first time since the funeral, she lets them. Miles away, in a mountain cabin where the pines keep each other's secrets, Eilif Dante bends over a basin as pain scalds through her. Not her pain. Someone else's, raw, keening, bottomless. Her knees buckle, her fingers seize the porcelain. Fangs descend with a low, involuntary growl. She hasn't felt anything this potent in centuries. She has learned control, learned to pass for almost normal. But this grief drags at her like undertow. She moves, gliding more than running, higher into the mountains, seeking the hush inside stone. In the cave's damp dark, she buries her hands in the earth. Moss cools her palms. Lightheaded, she pushes deeper until a small cavern opens around a pool of impossible blue. She steps into the water. Breathes. The air thrums, and threads of light unfurl around her as if the mountain itself were exhaling. Suspended for a long, held moment, she drinks in the clean pulse of nature. When she sinks back to her feet, her breath has evened out. Strength returns like tide. Dios mío, she murmurs, voice unsteady. So much pain. She is moving again, swift enough to make the wind look clumsy. At the edge of town she stops and listens. A heartbeat, steady, human, thrumming like a drumline 2 streets away. Unfamiliar. And that is impossible. Eilif knows every rhythm New Orleans has to offer. She follows. Back at the house on the hill, the late light makes a pale halo of Calliope's hair as she stands at the kitchen window. The valley beyond is all green hush and distance, but today it refuses to be beautiful. Hidden beneath the canopy outside, Eilif watches the woman in the window. Ice blue eyes, rimmed red from crying. Lips parted as if a question has just left them. Arms wrapped around her own ribs as if they are the only thing holding her together. The pain spikes through Eilif, clean, bright shards, and behind it the heartbeat, steady as a metronome. Who are you? And what are you carrying? She wonders. Inside, Calliope says, I'll message Klaus about the house. Maybe he wants it. There's nothing here for me but pain. Rosa nods but hesitates. Think about it, Cal. Stay the night. Morning makes different kinds of sense. They part at the door. Silence washes in. Night in New Orleans means laughter braided with saxophone and footsteps stitched to rhythm. Calliope drifts through the French Quarter like a ghost unwilling to haunt. She finds a small street-side restaurant, orders wine, and leans into the quiet inside her head. A shadow cuts the table's candlelight. Calliope looks up and meets eyes the color of winter sky. I haven't seen you around, the stranger says, voice low and warm. Calliope tilts her head, taking her in, obsidian hair spilling over one shoulder, fair skin, a precise jawline, and those ridiculous lips. Heat flares in her chest. She looks away. I'm just passing through, she says too quickly. The stranger gestures at the empty chair. Calliope nods before she can decide not to. A waiter appears. The woman orders a glass of red. Eilif Dante, she says, offering her hand. The touch sends electricity racing up Calliope's arm. She does not pull away. Calliope Sinclair. Sinclair. Eilif's brow lifts. As in the house on the hill? Used to be, Calliope says. They let the noise of the street occupy the silence for them. Do you make a habit of chatting up strangers? Calliope asks at last. Only when their pain calls me, Eilif answers, and the world narrows to the space between them. That's presumptuous, Calliope says, bristling. Plenty of people hurt. Most don't wear it on their sleeves. Neither do I. What makes you say that? Eilif doesn't answer right away. She watches revelers pass, laughing, singing, surviving, and then leans in, voice barely above the street's heartbeat. Yours is deafening. She stands before Calliope, can shape a reply, and disappears into the dark. That night, in her childhood bed, Calliope replays every word. Curiosity spikes hard and bright. Eilif Dante has stirred something she thought she'd safely buried, and suddenly leaving can wait. Chapter 2. Eilif Dante is no ordinary vampire. She doesn't feed on blood. She feeds on emotion and on the wild, clean essence of nature. The last of her kind, she has been alone for centuries. Joy and laughter strengthen her, love turns her into something mythic. But genuine, unshielded sorrow weakens her, steals at the edges of her power like ice forming on a river. Tonight, Calliope Sinclair is a storm she cannot stand inside for long. Eilif moves through her cabin with a predator's quiet. She lives by a single rule: do not get involved. Distance is salvation. Yet Calliope's grief has punched holes in every wall Eilif ever built. Vines answer when she calls. Animal spirits linger at the edge of her vision, old friends from older forests. She heals quickly and refuses to break nature's laws. Guardian, some might say. Interloper, others would hiss. She came to New Orleans 4 years ago to stand near her origin. Her family lived here for centuries. When the last of her kind faded, she chose this city and its music, this river and its moods, to be her home. Sleep evaded Calliope like a cruel joke. She tossed, shifted, pressed her face into the old quilt that still smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. But every time her eyes closed, those winter-blue eyes burned behind them. Eilif Dante. The name rolled like thunder through her chest. Who was she? What was she? The house sighed around her. The night crickets sang. And beneath it all, a pulse, her own heart, yes, but something else, too. A presence. Watching. She sat up, sheets tangling around her legs. This is ridiculous, she muttered, brushing hair from her face. But her skin prickled as if the walls themselves were listening. Outside, under the veil of oak branches heavy with moss, Eilif lingered. She should have left hours ago. Distance was survival, she had sworn it. Yet every time she turned, Calliope's heartbeat pulled her back like a tide. It wasn't just grief she felt pouring from the woman, it was something older, rarer. A resonance she hadn't touched in centuries. You're dangerous, Eilif thought, watching the light shift in Calliope's window. And I can't look away. Her fangs ached. She pressed tongue to teeth until the hunger receded. Emotion had taste, and Calliope's sorrow was wildfire laced with salt. Addictive. Lethal. The night wind changed. Eilif stiffened. A shuffle on the street below, too deliberate to be drunk revelers stumbling home. Her gaze sharpened. Two men, shadows moving wrong. She heard their muttered voices. Sinclair's back. Boss will want to know. Her jaw clenched. Hunters? Opportunists? Either way, Calliope was marked. Calliope padded downstairs for water, bare feet silent against old wood. She felt silly, grown woman spooked by her own heartbeat. But when she reached the kitchen, the air carried a weight she couldn't name. She froze, glass in hand. A whisper against the window pane, like breath, like warning. She turned. And there she was. Eilif, framed by the moonlight, those eyes catching silver fire. Calliope's breath caught. You followed me. Eilif's smile was a slash of heat and shadow. No. I stayed. The glass trembled in Calliope's hand. Why? Before Eilif could answer, the porch boards creaked. A figure moved. Then another. Calliope's pulse spiked, terror bright and sharp. Eilif stepped forward, voice a low growl. Get behind me. The door burst inward. Two men, boots heavy, blades gleaming with something darker than steel. Calliope stumbled back, eyes wide. Eilif moved like a storm, faster than her mind could catch, a blur of shadow and grace. One man hit the wall before his knife left his hand. The other swung wildly. Eilif caught his wrist, twisted, and the blade clattered to the floor. But the men weren't drunk, weren't thieves. Their eyes were wrong, hollow, glassy, rimmed in ink-black veins. They hissed words Calliope didn't understand, a language thick with rot. Eilif's power faltered under the stench of it. Necrotic magic. Old. Hungry. She bared her teeth. Out, she snapped, voice crackling with command. For a heartbeat, the men froze, trembling like puppets cut from strings. Then they bolted into the night, leaving silence behind them. Calliope pressed herself against the counter, breath ragged. What the hell was that? Eilif turned, eyes burning brighter now, impossible to hide. Not blue anymore. Luminous. Inhuman. Your past, she said softly. And mine. Calliope shook her head, denial thick in her chest. No, that's not real. That doesn't. Calliope. Eilif's voice cut like velvet over steel. You are not safe. Not here. Not anymore. And in that moment, fear tangled with something far more dangerous, desire. Calliope hated herself for it, but her next words tumbled out like confession. Then don't leave me. Eilif inhaled sharply, as if those 4 words pierced deeper than any blade. Chapter 3. Morning came grudgingly, pale sunlight sliding through the slats of old blinds. The house smelled faintly of smoke from the broken doorframe, of dust unsettled by violence. Calliope sat at the kitchen table, hair tangled, hands cupped around a mug of coffee she barely tasted. Every nerve was still vibrating. She kept replaying the night, the crash of bodies, the hiss of words she didn't understand, and Eilif's impossible eyes glowing in the dark. Across from her, Eilif leaned against the counter like she belonged to the shadows even in daylight. Her posture was easy, but her gaze never softened. Calliope set the mug down with a hard clink. You owe me an explanation. Eilif arched a brow. For saving your life? For turning my world upside down. Calliope's voice cracked with frustration. Those men. Their eyes. The way they moved. That wasn't human. A silence stretched, heavy as storm clouds. Eilif broke it first. They weren't. Not anymore. Calliope blinked. Not anymore? What does that mean? Eilif's jaw tightened. She glanced toward the shattered door. They were taken. Hollowed out by a kind of magic I thought was dead. You thought? Calliope leaned forward, anger flaring hotter than fear now. You knew something like this could happen? Eilif's eyes narrowed, ice flashing in their depths. Do you think I wanted to be here? Do you think I seek out this kind of trouble? What I think, Calliope shot back, is that a stranger shows up out of nowhere, knows my name, watches me through my window, and then monsters crash into my home. Forgive me if I'm not feeling grateful. Her words struck harder than intended. Eilif's lips curved, not quite a smile, more like a wound. Stranger, am I? Then why did you ask me not to leave you? Calliope froze, throat tightening. Heat flared under her skin, unwelcome, undeniable. Damn her for remembering. Damn her for meaning it. Eilif stepped closer, her voice lowering, threading into the space between them. You want the truth? I am not ordinary. And neither is what's chasing you. You can sell this house, run back to Italy, bury yourself in kitchens and wine, but it will find you. Because it isn't the house they're after, Calliope Sinclair. It's you. The words dropped like stones into silence. Calliope's breath shivered out of her. Me? Why? I'm no one. I'm just, she broke off, trembling fingers curling against the table. Eilif leaned down, close enough that her presence was almost unbearable, a mix of wild earth and something darker. You are far from no one. For a moment, neither moved. Sunlight cut across the table, gilding Calliope's defiance, shadowing Eilif's hunger. And between them, the storm gathered. Chapter 4. Calliope refused to look away. If Eilif thought a little intimidation and cryptic prophecy would scare her into silence, she had clearly never met a Sinclair. You're going to explain, Calliope said, steadying her voice. All of it. Right now. Eilif tilted her head, as though weighing whether Calliope deserved the truth, or whether it would break her. Then, slowly, she pulled out the chair opposite and sat, folding herself into the light like it belonged to her. You've already guessed I'm not like you, she began. Her tone was calm, deliberate, like a blade laid carefully on a table. But what you don't understand is what I am. Calliope crossed her arms, though her pulse betrayed her. Then enlighten me. Eilif's lips curved faintly. Not vampire, not witch, not ghost. Though the old tales stitch pieces of me into all of those. My kind are few. Perhaps gone, except for me. We were born of two hungers, the pulse of human emotion and the wild force of nature itself. I can live for centuries without blood, but never without feeling. Joy strengthens me. Love, she hesitated, her eyes flickering like stormlight. Love makes me something dangerous. Something eternal. Calliope's throat tightened. The word hung between them, heavy, forbidden, charged. She tried to cover it with a scoff. And sorrow? What about grief? Eilif's jaw flexed, and for the first time her eyes softened. Grief is poison. Yours nearly dropped me to my knees. The admission landed hard. Calliope felt her defenses wobble, anger and shame tangling in her chest. She wanted to snap back, to deny how broken she was, but the truth was raw, undeniable. Her grief had become a language she carried everywhere, and somehow this stranger had learned to read it. You feel all that? She asked, quieter now. I don't just feel it. Eilif leaned closer, her gaze locking. I feed on it. I carry it. And last night, I nearly drowned in yours. For a moment, silence. Calliope's skin burned under that gaze. Something inside her, half terror, half pull, whispered, Don't look away. You expect me to believe this? She finally whispered. No, Eilif leaned back, almost wistful. But you will. Because the men who broke into your home last night weren't after your house. They were after the tether they smelled in you. Calliope's brow furrowed. Tether. Eilif nodded. Somewhere, buried deep in your bloodline, there's a connection. An old pact your family never spoke of, but one that binds you to the city, to its shadows. You've been marked for generations. And when you returned, the old magic stirred. The words echoed like thunder through Calliope's ribs. Marked. Bound. It explained nothing and yet everything. The hollow-eyed men, Eilif's strange pull, even her own refusal to walk away from this cursed city. She forced a breath. And you? Where do you fit into this? Eilif's smile was sharp, tragic. I was born of the city's heart. I'm what happens when joy and sorrow refuse to let go of each other. Which means, Calliope, she paused, as though speaking the words cost her. Your storm is now mine. The confession cut through the morning like lightning. Calliope gripped her coffee mug just to keep her hands from shaking. She should be terrified. She should be running. But her next words came out low, trembling and far too honest. Then maybe you shouldn't stay so close. Eilif's laugh was soft, dangerous. And yet, here I am. Chapter 5. The day did not grant them peace. By late afternoon the house was alive with restless silence. Calliope busied herself with repairs, sweeping glass, bracing the broken door with an old chair. Every scrape of broom against wood felt absurdly small compared to what had invaded the night before. Eilif watched from the doorway, arms crossed, still and dangerous as a loaded weapon. She had offered to fix the door with a whisper of power, vines curling, wood knitting, but Calliope refused. Something normal. Something I can control, she'd said. And so Eilif let her, though it gnawed at her patience. Finally, Calliope spun on her. You could help, you know. Or is watching me your idea of protection? Eilif's lips curved faintly. I am protecting you. If they come back, you'll be glad I'm not distracted with carpentry. Calliope huffed, a strand of hair falling across her cheek. Do you ever answer without a riddle? Yes, Eilif said simply. Then, softer, but only to those I trust. That disarmed Calliope more than any riddle could. Her hands stilled on the broom. She should have snapped back. She should have said she didn't trust Eilif either. But the truth sat heavy in her chest, every instinct told her she did. Against all reason, against the fear, she trusted her. Before she could reply, the air shifted. A low vibration rolled through the floorboards, subtle but undeniable. Eilif stiffened. Her head snapped toward the window, nostrils flaring. They're close. Calliope's stomach dropped. The men from last night? No, Eilif's voice was a rasp. Worse. The light dimmed unnaturally, clouds swallowing the sun in a matter of breaths. From the woods beyond the hill, whispers carried, chanting, low and guttural. The sound scraped Calliope's spine raw. Eilif moved, a blur of precision, placing herself between Calliope and the window. Her hands flexed, veins rising faintly beneath her pale skin as if something ancient pressed forward. Stay behind me. No matter what. But Calliope couldn't stay still. Her body buzzed with the same wrongness that saturated the air. Her chest burned like fire under her sternum, like something inside her wanted out. She clutched it, gasping. What's happening to me? Eilif's eyes widened, color flashing from ice to molten silver. The tether, she whispered. It's waking. The front door rattled violently, hinges shrieking. Chanting grew louder, closer, circling the house like wolves. Calliope staggered back. They're here for me. The door exploded inward, this time not with blades, but with shadows thick, writhing, ink-like shapes that clawed at the air. The cultists stepped through behind them, faces painted with symbols older than language. Eilif bared her teeth, voice dropping into something inhuman. You chose the wrong house. And the storm broke. Chapter 6. The shadows struck first. They poured through the shattered doorway like liquid night, clawing up the walls, seething across the floor. Each whisper carried teeth, each ripple of black smoke a threat that seemed to breathe on its own. Eilif was already moving faster than sight, faster than thought. 1 second she was in front of Calliope, the next she was in the heart of the storm. Her hand cut through a shadow like a blade through silk, and the thing shrieked, its form unraveling into sparks. But more surged forward. The cultists followed, their chants rising, words that bent the air and curdled the light. Symbols on their skin glowed faintly, pulsing with the same wrong rhythm as the shadows they summoned. Eilif's fangs flashed as she tore into the tide, her body a blur of lethal grace. Her eyes burned silver, hair whipping as if wind bent only to her. She moved with the violence of centuries, each strike shattering a shadow into ribbons of light. Yet the house groaned under the assault, timbers rattling, glass splintering. Behind her, Calliope pressed against the kitchen table, heart hammering so loud it drowned the chant. Terror locked her limbs. But then heat, fierce and alive, ignited beneath her sternum. The tether. It clawed upward, burning through bone and skin until she gasped aloud, clutching at her chest. Eilif spun, eyes catching the glow blooming under Calliope's skin. Her face hardened. Not now, she hissed. You're not ready. The cultists heard her. Their chant shifted, words snapping like whips, aimed now at Calliope. The shadows lunged for her, hungry, writhing. No! Eilif's roar shook the walls. She spread her arms wide, palms slamming against the air as if gripping an invisible net. Nature answered. Roots split the floorboards, twisting upward to lash at the shadows. Vines tore through the walls, wrapping around cultists' limbs, yanking them off balance. The house became a living thing, wild and furious. But still, they pressed closer. Calliope's chest burned hotter, the glow spilling from her skin in jagged lines, veins lit like molten rivers. She screamed, not from pain but from release, as something inside her tore free. A shockwave blasted outward. The shadows nearest her disintegrated into ash. The cultists staggered, clutching their heads as their symbols flickered and died. The room rang with silence, heavy, vibrating, impossible. Calliope collapsed to her knees, gasping. The glow dimmed, retreating, leaving only trembling exhaustion in its wake. Eilif was at her side in an instant, kneeling, one hand steadying her shoulder. Her eyes still burned silver, but her voice was gentle, shaken. Calliope, what have you done? Calliope looked at her, breath ragged, eyes wide. I don't know. Outside, the last echoes of the cult's chant faded into the woods. They had fled, but the tether had been seen. And nothing in New Orleans would ever be the same. Chapter 7. The silence after chaos was almost worse than the battle itself. The house reeked of scorched wood and damp earth, the walls trembling as if still remembering the storm that had torn through them. Broken glass glittered across the floor, vines writhed sluggishly before retreating back into soil. Calliope knelt in the center of it all, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, chest heaving. The glow had gone, but its ghost lingered under her skin, a phantom fire she couldn't ignore. Eilif crouched beside her, steady, unshaken on the surface, but trembling beneath. She reached out, fingers brushing Calliope's wrist before closing firmly around it. Stay with me. Breathe. Calliope's laugh cracked raw. Easy for you to say. I just turned into what? A human torch? A bomb? Eilif's lips tightened, but she didn't let go. Not a bomb. A beacon. The word lodged like a shard in Calliope's ribs. A beacon for them? Yes. The honesty stung, but Eilif's voice was gentle. But also for me. Their eyes locked. For the first time, Calliope didn't see the predator in those ice-blue depths. She saw weariness, longing, and something dangerously close to tenderness. Her throat tightened. Why are you doing this? Why stay? You barely know me. Eilif's gaze flickered away, toward the wrecked doorway. Because I can't walk away from you. Not after last night. Not after this. She hesitated, as though admitting more would fracture her. Your tether, it sings like mine. It shouldn't exist, not anymore. And yet, here you are. Calliope's hands trembled. She gripped her knees to hide it, but Eilif noticed anyway. She always noticed. Look at me, Eilif said, softer now. Calliope forced herself to. You are not broken, Eilif whispered. Whatever they took from you, your parents, your peace, it didn't destroy you. It woke something older, something they fear. And if you let me, I will stand between you and everything that comes. The words hit harder than any shadow's strike. Calliope swallowed against the ache in her throat. Tears threatened, hot and shameful. She hated them. She hated how easily this stranger unraveled her. But when Eilif's hand lifted, brushing that stray strand of hair from her cheek, Calliope didn't pull away. She leaned into it, just enough to betray herself. I don't trust you, she whispered, though her voice shook with the lie. Eilif smiled faintly, thumb grazing her skin. Good. You shouldn't. For a moment, silence stretched, charged, fragile, infinite. And in the ruins of the house, with danger circling just beyond the trees, the only thing that mattered was the impossible gravity drawing them closer. Chapter 8. Night settled like velvet, heavy and fragile. The house was quiet, too quiet, its broken door now barred with furniture, its scars hidden in shadow. Outside, cicadas hummed, pretending the world hadn't just cracked open. Calliope sat on the edge of her childhood bed, fingers still trembling as she unwound a strip of fabric around her palm. Will you love her then, when she is poison to you? Calliope's chest seized. The molten tether inside her flared, searing. Her aunt's words cut deeper because they tasted of her own fears. Eilif turned her head just enough to meet Calliope's eyes, voice steady, unwavering. I meant every word. Even now. Especially now. The shadows surged. Rosa lifted her hands, and black tendrils whipped across the room like living chains, lashing toward Calliope. Eilif roared, intercepting, her arms flaring with vines and light. Roots tore through the floorboards, snarling upward to catch the tendrils mid-strike. The impact rattled the house to its bones. Run, Calliope! Eilif shouted. But Calliope couldn't run. The tether inside her ignited, burning brighter than ever before. Her body arched, her palms glowing with a blinding golden fire. The shadows writhed and recoiled, screaming. Rosa staggered, her smile twisting into a snarl. No, it's too soon. Calliope stepped forward, fire spilling from her fingertips in waves, her voice shaking but fierce. You don't get to wear her face. You don't get to use her. The golden fire surged, clashing with the shadows in a violent storm of light and dark. For a moment, Rosa's true face flickered through, the Aunt Calliope knew, eyes wide with pain, lips parting in a silent plea. Aunt Rosa, Calliope whispered, her fire faltering. The shadows pounced on the hesitation, surging forward like a tidal wave. Eilif caught her, arms wrapping around Calliope, dragging her back before the darkness consumed her. Don't stop. She's already gone. But Calliope's tears burned hot, grief and fury colliding inside her until the tether flared uncontrollably, flooding the room with golden fire. Shadows shrieked, curling away, and Rosa's body collapsed to the floor, empty, still. Silence. Calliope stared, chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. No. Eilif held her tight, voice raw but steady. It wasn't her anymore. You saved her from them. Do you hear me? You saved her. But Calliope sobbed tore through the room, a sound that cut deeper into Eilif than any blade ever could, because sorrow was her poison, and now she was drowning in it. Chapter 12. The house smelled of ash and loss. Calliope knelt beside Rosa's still body, her hands trembling as she smoothed the hair back from her aunt's face. It was cold now, empty, and no amount of glowing fire or desperate whisper would bring her back. Her sobs came soft at first, then jagged, then unrelenting, tearing through the silence, each one a knife. Behind her, Eilif staggered. At first, she told herself it was the exhaustion of the fight. But the truth struck quick and brutal. Calliope's grief was flooding her senses, thick and unfiltered. It rolled off her in waves, raw and unrestrained, and every breath Eilif took dragged more poison into her veins. Her knees buckled. She gripped the wall, fangs piercing her lip as she fought to hold control. The room tilted, heavy with sorrow's weight. Not here. Not in front of her. Calliope turned at the sound, eyes red, face streaked with tears. Eilif. She tried to straighten, tried to mask the tremor in her voice. I'm fine. But her body betrayed her, shoulders curling, her breath breaking into shudders. The sorrow was too much, sweet and corrosive, the exact storm she had sworn to guard Calliope against. It was eating her alive. Calliope crawled toward her, panic replacing grief in her gaze. What's happening to you? Eilif pressed her palm to the floorboards, searching for grounding. Vines rose, desperate, curling weakly, only to wither in seconds. She cursed in a language older than the city, one Calliope didn't understand. Her voice cracked, sharp with pain. You have to stop. Your sorrow, Calliope, it's killing me. Calliope froze, horror dawning. No, her voice broke. I can't stop. I can't. Eilif's eyes, glowing faintly, locked onto hers. Then, find something else. Anything. Anchor yourself. Or I won't survive the night. Her body arched with the force of it, a strangled cry escaping her throat. Shadows in the corners of the room stirred, sensing her weakness, pressing closer like vultures circling prey. Calliope's heart clenched. She wanted to collapse, to drown in grief, but Eilif's words were a lifeline and a knife. Her sorrow was poison. Her sorrow could kill the one person who had promised to protect her. Through the blur of tears, she grabbed Eilif's face, forcing her to meet her gaze. Look at me. Look at me, Eilif. I'll find it. I'll find joy. Just don't you dare leave me. Her voice cracked, but the tether inside her flared faintly, golden sparks trembling under her skin. The grief didn't vanish, but she reached deeper, desperate, clawing for anything Rosa's laugh from long ago, her mother's warm hands, the smell of cinnamon in the kitchen during winter. Memories like threads of light, fragile but real. Eilif shuddered, the poison receding just enough for her to draw breath. She collapsed against Calliope, her head pressed to her shoulder, whispering, "Hold on to that. Please." Calliope wrapped her arms around her, clutching her fiercely, grief and light tangling until the night trembled with both. And as Eilif shook in her arms, Calliope realized the truth. She wasn't the only one who needed saving. Chapter 13. Eilif's weight was heavy in Calliope's arms, her breath ragged, eyes half-lidded and dim. Every tremor in her body echoed the fading pull of her life force, as though the shadows had found a way to hollow her from the inside out. "No, no, no," Calliope muttered, panic scraping her throat raw. "You don't get to leave me. Not now." Eilif's lips parted, a whisper falling like ash. "The pool, in the mountains. Take me." The memory sparked, Eilif stepping into a hidden pool, light threading around her, power returning like tide. Calliope didn't hesitate. She dragged her to her feet, slinging Eilif's arm over her shoulder. "Then we're going." The trek blurred. Calliope half-carried, half-dragged her through the night, stumbling over roots and stones, sweat streaking her face. The tether inside her burned with every step, guiding her, whispering when her strength faltered. At last, the mountain opened into the cavern, the pool waiting like glass lit from beneath, impossibly blue. The air hummed, alive. Calliope lowered Eilif into the water, her heart hammering. "Please," she whispered, pressing trembling hands against her chest. "Don't let this be the end." The pool stirred, ripples glowing. Threads of light unfurled, wrapping around Eilif's body, pulling her deeper, suspending her as if the water itself held her tenderly. Calliope gasped as the glow brightened, curling into Eilif's skin, seeping into her veins. Her chest rose, fell, then stilled. "No!" Calliope plunged forward, gripping her shoulders. Don't you dare leave me." Her tears spilled into the pool, and where they fell, the water shimmered brighter. Golden light flared under her palms, the tether igniting, flowing from her into Eilif. And then breath. Eilif's body arched, a cry tearing from her throat as light burst from her eyes, spilling like lightning across the cavern walls. The air shook with power. Calliope nearly collapsed with relief, sobbing as she held her close. "You're back," she whispered fiercely. "You're back." Eilif's hand lifted, weak but sure, cupping Calliope's cheek. Her touch was cool, trembling, but her eyes glowed steady now. "You saved me." Calliope laughed through her tears, pressing her forehead against hers. "Guess we're even." For a long moment, there was only silence, the kind that wasn't empty, but full. Full of the bond neither could deny anymore. Eilif's thumb brushed away Calliope's tears, her voice barely a breath. "You're my joy now. Don't ever forget that." And Calliope, heartbreaking and remaking itself all at once, whispered the only truth she had left. "Then stay with me. Whatever comes, stay." Their lips hovered, not yet touching, but the tenderness, the promise, the love, they were already woven, stitched into the night like something eternal. Chapter 14. The cavern was still, the pool calm once more, as if the storm of light had been nothing but a dream. Calliope lay against the mossy stone, breath slowing, her hand tangled with Eilif's. Beside her, the vampiress, no, more than that, something ancient and wild, was alive again, her chest rising steady, her eyes no longer dim. For the first time since the chaos began, there was no chant, no shadow pressing at the door. Only the hush of water and the whisper of their breathing. "You're warm," Eilif murmured, her head resting against Calliope's shoulder. "You feel alive in ways I forgot the world could be." Calliope turned to look at her, brushing damp strands of black hair from her face. "Don't you dare forget again. Not when I dragged your stubborn self all the way here." A laugh slipped from Eilif, quiet, unguarded. It filled the cavern with something softer than power, peace. They sat there in silence, the weight of the vow unspoken but thick between them. At last, Eilif's hand squeezed hers. "I meant what I said. You are my joy now. My light. As long as you stay alive, as long as you fight for happiness, I will never leave your side." Calliope's throat tightened. "And I'll fight to keep us both above the sorrow. I don't want to poison you, Eilif. Not with my grief." "You won't," Eilif said, firm, certain. "Grief doesn't vanish. But it can be steered like a river. You've already shown me you can." Calliope frowned softly. "How?" "Memory," Eilif whispered, trailing her fingers along Calliope's wrist. "When the shadows come, you reach for the light inside the loss. The laughter, not the silence. The love, not the absence. If you can hold to that, sorrow will never own you. And it will never break me." The words were both instruction and vow. Calliope leaned closer, her forehead brushing Eilif's, tears slipping freely now, but not bitter ones. Softer, lighter, almost sweet. "Then teach me. Show me how to keep the light." Eilif's lips hovered against hers, restraint trembling like glass between them. "Gladly. For as long as I exist." They didn't need more words. The vow was stitched in the quiet, in the warmth of hands that refused to let go, in the breathless space where sorrow was not king. For that fragile moment, they basked, two souls scarred but refusing to surrender, wrapped not in shadows, but in the fragile light they made for each other. Chapter 15. Dawn crept into the cavern, a pale gold glow spilling through cracks in the stone. The pool reflected it back, shimmering as though the mountain itself bowed to the new day. Calliope stirred, still wrapped in the moss and in Eilif's presence. For once, her chest was not heavy with grief. The tether inside her pulsed gently, not burning, not aching, just alive. Eilif sat close, her hair damp, her gaze steady and unguarded. She looked softer in the morning light, less predator, more woman. And yet no less eternal. "You're staring," Calliope teased, her voice still husky with sleep. "I'm memorizing," Eilif answered without hesitation. Heat climbed into Calliope's cheeks. She swallowed, the weight of the moment pressing sweetly against her. "Why?" Eilif leaned closer, the faintest curve of a smile on her lips. "Because if the world tries to tear you from me, I want to carry every piece of you in memory. And if the world doesn't, then I want to remember you like this, always." Calliope's breath trembled, her defenses shattering for good. "You're impossible." "And you're mine," Eilif whispered, her voice a vow. The words struck like lightning, but instead of fear, Calliope felt release. The tether inside her flared, not as fire or storm, but as warmth, steady, luminous. She didn't think. She closed the distance. Their lips met, soft at first, testing, trembling, but the moment it happened, everything else fell away. The cavern, the cult, the sorrow, even time itself. There was only the heat of Eilif's mouth, the taste of something forbidden and inevitable, the rush of centuries colliding into a single kiss. When they parted, breathless, Calliope pressed her forehead to Eilif's, laughter and tears tangled together. "So much for keeping your distance." Eilif's thumb traced her jaw, her eyes blazing with both hunger and reverence. "I was lost the moment I saw your sorrow. I am found now in your joy." The vow hung in the stillness, sealing them tighter than any magic. For a long moment, they basked in that fragile paradise, the tether humming, their hands intertwined, lips tasting of promise. Beyond the cavern, the city stirred, shadows waiting, enemies regrouping. But for now, New Orleans and its dangers could wait. Here, in the sanctuary of stone and water, two broken souls had chosen each other. And nothing, not even the darkness, could undo that choice. Epilogue. New Orleans woke with its usual hungers, jazz spilling into the streets, shadows curling in alleyways, the river carrying secrets on its restless tide. The city did not know that a vow had been forged in the mountains, stronger than any spell, older than any curse. Calliope Sinclair carried the tether now not as a wound, but as a flame. And beside her walked Eilif Dante, the last of her kind, bound not by hunger but by love. Together they had rewritten their edges, grief softened into memory, loneliness tempered into belonging. The cult still stirred. Darkness still gathered. The world would come for them both, teeth bared, claws ready. But for one fragile, infinite breath of time, none of that mattered. In the hush between heartbeats, there was only this, a mortal and something more than mortal, lips still tasting of vows, hands refusing to let go, joy wrestled from sorrow and made eternal. And somewhere deep in the marrow of the city, the shadows shivered. For love had returned to New Orleans, and love, once awakened, is a storm no darkness can endure. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.